How to remove tenants after buying a house in probate. We'll get into that next. Welcome back to the channel featuring the leading probate real estate team in all of California. I'm Brendan Mohr, Realtor and Certified Probate and Trust Specialist by the California Association of Realtors.
And I'm Bill Heyman. I'm a licensed California professional fiduciary. I'm also a registered and bonded California legal document assistant specializing in probate work, as well as I am a licensed California real estate broker.
Now, please like this video, subscribe right now. Don't overpay. Want a fast, easy, and no-cost probate service? We have a team in every county in California where we help people save thousands of dollars and eliminate headaches through our one-of-a-kind cost savings, probate administration service, and real estate listing combo. If it's in California and real estate needs to be sold, you may qualify. So reach out, even if you started probate with someone else or on your own. Our info is in the About section on this channel. We love your calls, texts, emails, and comments. Now let's get into it. So it's how to remove tenants in a house after buying it in probate. So yeah, you're the buyer of a house. You went through the process. Maybe you bought it at a traditional sale. Maybe you went through a court confirmation hearing. And for whatever reason, you bought it with occupants in place. You allowed the house to close with occupants in place. Maybe you bought it some kind of an auction type of thing, which is kind of like what a court confirmation sale is. And there was somebody living in the house. So what do you do? At first, who are these people, right?
Absolutely.
They could be occupants that are heirs of the estate. They could even be an administrator or executor of the estate, and they maybe stayed there, didn't move out, or something to that effect. Acquaintances of the decedent, the person who owned the house and passed away. It could be simply tenants with or without a lease. And that's important. There might actually be a lease in place, and we'll get into that pretty soon here. So I'd say one of the things to do is maybe communicate early. If you're a buyer and you want to know, maybe talk to the listing agent perhaps, see what's going on with the tenants, see what their plans are. Maybe if you're buying it at some kind of an auction, a court confirmation hearing, do some research on it. Maybe even knock on the door, talk to them, tell them what's going on.
Yeah, I think communication is key there. Is what you're saying is you really want to communicate as much as you can with those tenants. Keep that line of communication open.
Some of them might not actually understand that it's in probate, what probate is. You might actually have to educate them on what's going on.
Absolutely.
Now, you bought the house and a tenant says, well, they have a lease. You might want to ask them. If there is a lease in place, well, just because the ownership changed doesn't get rid of that lease. So you typically have to abide by that lease.
Yeah.
Now, you have to determine the tenant rights. So California does have strong tenant rights. And you may want to look into, in fact, I recommend it, the proper way to serve notice, to evict, what their rights are. And it could change in different counties. So check those local regulations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Bill, this is something that, as on the listing side, we've done several times before we actually list a property. It's serving proper notice. Just trying to get people vacated before that.
Sure.
And it's either a 30-day or a 60-day notice in order to start that process. If you can't get them to leave voluntarily, you'd have to start that process.
We've been involved in situations where it was going to be a friendly situation of the tenant leaving, but even in that situation, I was acting as the administrator of a particular estate. I went ahead and had a 60-day notice served anyway, but I told the tenant ahead of time. I said, look, I'm going to serve you a 60-day notice. It's part of the process. So I gave them, I let them know that it was coming, so it wasn't a big surprise to them. And they knew that, they were going to have to leave. And I just explained to them that this was part of the process that we were going to use. They were okay with it, as long as the communication was there.
And I think that gets us right into maybe now you have these people living in the house and maybe they're not leaving voluntarily. Maybe they told you that they would leave and you bought the house, but they didn't leave. And you may need to figure out why that is. Now, a lot of times in probate, especially if it's heirs of the estate, a lot of times there's sort of a sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
It was their mother's house. They grew up there. They were taking care of their mother. They felt like they should have gotten the house, whereas that's not how really how probate works, in most cases at least. and they refuse to leave. Maybe they're staying there, really for free. They felt they were taking care of the house, so they're entitled. And now you own the house, and they still have that entitlement feeling, or maybe they just didn't save up enough. We've seen that, right?
Oh yeah.
Where an occupant of the house has been staying there for a long time, doesn't have a job, doesn't have anywhere to go, and now, well, that's a really difficult problem to deal with, because now you bought that house, it's your investment, and you want to be able to either enjoy that house or flip it, sell it, whatever it is, rent it out. So from there, serving proper notice was one of those things to do, because whether or not they're going to tell you they're going to move out or not, what I've seen is, what you say, Bill, in probate, it can often be more difficult to get them to voluntarily leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's for those reasons I said.
Yeah, it's especially like you were saying, especially if it's an heir or a family member. I found that they do have that sense of entitlement, and they just feel that it's their right to live there for as long as they want, no matter what happens.
So that goes into a good reason to give that 30 or 60-day notice, even if they have said they will voluntarily leave, because you want to just let them know nicely, just like Bill has said. We've done it multiple times. Now, say they don't leave. Okay, so one of those problems is you have to figure out, this is where you get into your problem solving. Why are they not leaving? Oh gosh, a lot of it is because they don't have the money. They were staying there for low cost. You may have to do something called cash for keys, which is essentially offering them a cash incentive to voluntarily move out. And there's a number of ways to do that. You could help them with their first and last month's rent on a new place, that kind of thing. Yeah.
The cash for keys is actually a good way to go, because number one, you're helping out the tenant move somewhere else. And number two, you avoid the whole legal eviction process, which can sometimes take quite a while, and it can get expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you file for an eviction if necessary, right? And that can take a while. Basically, you file an unlawful detainer action and then go through that formal eviction process. But that could take, well, in some cases, several weeks at the best, but months, many months.
Oftentimes it's the months.
Yeah, and it can get costly for you.
Especially if you got to bring an attorney in to do the eviction process.
And that's my last thing on this. I think when it really comes down to it, if you're having trouble doing it on your own, you may have to bring in a real estate attorney. So yeah, anything you'd like to add? I'm going to summarize all that, but
just the point, some of the points you made at the beginning about communication. If you can really communicate well with that tenant, keep the lines of communication open, I think whatever happens will go better.
Yeah, so just if you're a buyer of a house in probate and there's occupants there, just make sure first, understand who they are and what their motivation is. Communicate with them early, preferably before it even closes. Review a lease agreement if that is present. Make sure you know what rights that tenant has. Serve proper notice, 30-day or 60-day, depending on how long they've been in the house. Then offer cash for keys. You may have to add that into your budget when you're buying that house, if you know that is going to be the case, or you suspect that's going to be the case. Then, if you really have to, file for eviction if necessary. And if you need legal advice and legal help on it, hire a real estate attorney. Most of the time, you can get them out before close of escrow, but if there's a situation where you have to close, you just want that property, depending on how you bought the house, and you bought it with a tenant in place, maybe you wanted it in place. And a lot of times a seller will actually lower a price for you if you are willing to inherit that tenant in that situation, which might actually be okay for you. Maybe it's a $20,000 reduction. Okay. So I think you may need to know about the probate real estate process in general. We have a 5-minute video called the California Probate Real Estate Sales Explained in 5 Minutes. So it's going to appear right over my head.